Hello, this is Blaine, and welcome to another episode of Energy Works. I am solo today, and I think this is going to be a quick one, but I've also promised myself, and hopefully you, by saying it out loud right now, that I'm going to stop saying it's a quick one because the intention of these solo episodes are to be quick and for me to just talk about something that's on my mind, usually because I myself am studying it. And as a teacher, I feel compelled to share it with you. But sometimes they do go a little longer once I start hitting record and talking in the microphone than I think they're going to go, just based on the notes. I always write out full notes before I do these. And also because what I think is quick is probably different than what you think is quick. And most importantly, by the time you are listening to this or watching this, you are fully aware of how long it is because the timestamp is right there. So me sitting here, I don't know exactly how long this is going to go. So I'm going to stop saying this is quick because that's not really helpful to anyone, but it is my intention. I know that sometimes Lauren and I can go a little longer. And when Lauren has a guest for her Cool People Big Ideas series, that does always go longer. So of the three options there, my intention is that this is the quickest all the time, that it's always the quickest. Okay. So today we are going to talk about the water element, specifically the water element's importance in aging. And as I've been studying in the way that the universe has put my studies in front of me, it didn't land with me previously how much when we focus on healthy aging of all of the elements, the water element is the most critical. And in the tradition with Eden energy medicine that I first learned about the Chinese five element theory, in that tradition, we learned that water is first. So the cycle goes water, wood, fire, earth, metal. And water is the beginning of life, and metal is the end of life, or the beginning and end of an experience, or a phase, or a breath, or all of the cycles that we experience here on earth. I learned a while back that in other traditions, you start in wood and you end in water. And I appreciate that different, it's a cycle. So theoretically, you could start and end it anywhere because it just goes around and around and around and around. You could say that the day starts and ends at 6 a.m., or you could say that it starts and ends at 1 p.m., or you could say that it starts and ends at 11 p.m., right? It's just kind of how you look at the world and how you run your day and your life. So I understand that in a cycle, you can start and end anywhere. And so I originally learned that it starts and ends, or it starts in water, ends in metal. Other people think it starts in wood, ends in water. And I appreciate the point of view that it ends in water more now, based on everything that I'm going to talk about today, that I've been learning from studying with traditional Chinese medicine teachers, and also in food energetics, which are the backbone of food energetics is Chinese five element theory. And so I'm learning from other teachers now that, looking through the lens of supporting our wellness with what we eat, and all of the elements are important, but they teach about water in a slightly different way. And in a nutshell, it's pretty easy for me to see it either way. I learned in Eden Energy Medicine that everything starts in water. When you think about the baby in the womb, right, that the baby is floating in water. We all started in water. Or the seedling underground is getting water dripping through the earth, nourishing it. And that's the beginning of life. However, at the end of life, where do we go? We go back to the seed. We go back into the earth. We go back to the womb, however you want to see it. And so I can understand how some people view the end of life being the water phase. Two terms when I study, or two phrases that I hear, are inevitable flow downstream and the declining well. That's two things. The declining well and the inevitable flow downstream are two metaphors. I'll also sometimes hear about candle, which I'll touch on. Candle does feel a little bit more like a fire metaphor, but same thing. So the general idea is when a river is flowing down to empty into the sea, it can't turn around and go back the other way. And so we want to conserve and nourish the water that we have before it has emptied into the sea and it is gone. Or the declining well metaphor is when we're born, we are a full well, this Jing, this life essence, life force energy, prana, we would call it in yoga. When we are born, the well is as full as it's going to get. It cannot possibly get any more full. And as we age from day one to year one to decade one, our well is slowly declining. And again, we want to nourish and conserve what we have remaining. And the candle is really, the candle wick is a height. When you are born, you're burning the candle, and all through your life, then your candle is burning down, 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 and then it comes to the end. And so that's another metaphor, not as much of a water metaphor. But I think you get the spirit of how this is looked at. We want to nourish and enliven and conserve what we have left as we move forward in the rest of our life. So the two meridians in water element are kidney and bladder. The bones are governed by kidney, and as we age, we get this weakness in our bones, osteoporosis, osteopenia, maybe some low back pain, weaker knees, just our structure starts to break down a little bit. And then on the bladder side of things, we have our urinary health, incontinence, inability to fully empty, urgency, maybe needing to get up several times during the night, weakening pelvic floor. So that is the bladder side. And also kidney governs our ears. And so hearing loss and tinnitus are governed by kidney. And the other thing that kidney governs is marrow and brain. And in Chinese medicine, they look at marrow broader than I think most people do in Western medicine, which is the inside of the bones, which obviously kidney governs bones, and bone marrow is a big part of that. But marrow is also the spinal cord and the brain. And so when it comes to degenerating spine, cognitive decline, memory loss, all of that spine and brain stuff, this is all also governed by kidney and things that we are concerned about as we age. Emotionally, out of balance water is fear, and in balanced water is courage. And I think we all know older people, I'll call it stuck in their ways. I mean, maybe they wouldn't say that they have fear, but stuck in the ways is why aren't you going out and doing new things and taking on new experiences and maybe acting like you did in your youth when you are older in life? And so the emotional landscape is more of this maybe like stasis and not feeling so comfortable going out and making a lot of life changes. So how do you replenish the well? That is really what we care about here. And quality hydration. And it's going to come back to water. Quality hydration, staying hydrated, not just with lots of water, but mineral-rich water, and also the food. Taking in hydration via food that has a lot of hydration in it, the fruits, the celery, the soups, the things that you eat that have a lot of water base to them, either from the plant world or things that you make. Even bone broth. Bones, right? Bone broth. I'm vegan. I don't do bone broth, but there are vegan versions of bone broth, which bring me this mineral rich, warm hydration into my body. We don't want a lot of cold, raw vegetables, ice water, cold foods. We want this more warm and nourishing food, either room temperature waters or warmer waters like tea. Tea is great and very hydrating. And we want gentleness to our movement. We want more yin, the very active, out in the world, that's very yang. And too much yang without the yin drains our well and does not help us slow down the draining of the well or replenish the well. And so yoga, healing yoga, like energy medicine yoga, walks, being out in nature, Tai Chi, Qigong, this slow, gentle movement is very healing and replenishing. And I want to say, many of you listening and watching know me in person, or I'm your teacher, you know I am a very active person. I lift weights in the gym. I run. I compete in running races. I train hard. And so what this means to me is not that I stop doing those things. It means I have to double down on the more nourishing activities because I have my candle, right? We have the phrase, burning the candle at both ends. I'm not going to get away with burning the candles at both ends like I did when my well was a lot more full, nor do I want to. So I have to make decisions about the time I spend running, which I love running, and the time I spend walking and easy hikes and gentle swims and healing energy medicine yoga practices. Meditation, chanting, writing, journaling. I get a lot of sleep. That is one way that I really fill my well is I'm very strict on sleeping. There's many podcasts about me talking about sleep. I have a deep understanding that my sleep is critically important, and I sleep like it's my job. I show up to bed at night at a certain time, and I get out of bed the next day and show up to the world at a certain time like it's my job. I am a very good sleeper, which is one of the ways that I personally keep my well replenished. Breath work, mindful breathing, and when it comes to the bladder health, pelvic floor exercises for sure, but also tuning in to your intake of hydration and mindfully urinating. And what I mean by that is, and it's going to sound a little woo-woo, drink your tea and say to yourself, I am hydrating my body. Use your mind and your thoughts to really integrate what you are drinking, your water, your tea, or your water-rich foods, or your bone broth or vegan version of bone broth, or soups or stews or ramen or whatever it is you're having. Take the moment to feel the hydration of the body, acknowledge the hydration of the body. And when you urinate, take time. And I know sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pee. I have 1 minute. That is not taking the time, right? So doing the best you can, we all have our life to mindfully urinate and fully empty the bladder. And then wait till the bladder is full and then fully empty the bladder. wait till the bladder is full, fully empty the bladder, and being very mindful about it as part of this, the well, filling your well. Some other foods, we talked about water-rich foods, which are most important. The water is key here. Dark colored foods like black beans, kidney beans, black sesame seeds, black rice, seaweed, and dark berries are all great for this purpose. Walnuts and chestnuts in the nuts world, quinoa and millet from the grains world, and ginger and cinnamon in moderation. So when we're thinking about food, we want to be thinking about everything we're saying about filling our well and nourishing our kidney and bladder, but also being seasonal. And so maybe when it's really cold outside, we know we don't want to be having a lot of cold foods, but really we don't when it's very cold outside. But maybe we have a little more ginger and cinnamon, some warming spices when it's cold outside. Conversely, when it's really hot outside, maybe we do less ginger and cinnamon, and we do take in a little bit of cooler foods. Lemon water is very hydrating and very nourishing, and it makes you feel cool. Cucumber water, and you can have it on the cool side. It's one of the reasons why lemonade is such a popular summer drink. So you can have more of those on the cool side in the summer, but maybe not so much in the winter. So remember the seasonal aspect to this too. We want to avoid excessive salt. Obviously, excessive salt is terrible for filling your well. Stimulants like too much caffeine. We want to avoid alcohol. We want to avoid processed foods and refined sugars. And again, for the most part, ice drinks and cold raw foods, except for when they might feel really supportive when it is hot outside. So that is all that I want to share with you today about being mindful about water, kidney, bladder, and your well, and taking care of it for yourself as you age. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you next time on Energy Works.